Well, now that I'm recording, we can do a dumb bit or something.
Oh, you want to do a dumb bit?
I do want to do a dumb bit. How dumb can we get?
Well, you don't think that the people deserve something a little higher effort. I mean, this is week 7.
No. That's all I You don't think that people deserve
No, you've
something?
beaten it out of me. If I say something, that's when you're going to cut. So I have, you know what? Like, whoever moves first. And
It's true. Whoever moves first dies.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Double Dip Draft. We are on the final week of Season 6 of the Pearl Division. I am your co-host, Spood, coach of the Southtown Sand Slashers. Joining me, as always,
Is Cabral, coach of the hash-slinging Age of Slashers. That's going to get longer every time I say it from now on.
That's a good idea. That's a good way to
It's
sell
a
it.
very good idea. Yeah, week 7. So we've been talking about this for a while. Pearl Division literally came down to this final week for the matches and to know who's moving on, who's not, who made it to playoffs, and all that. And we're going to get into playoffs, we're getting into bracketing and how that all works later. We've got a few matches to watch first, and we're probably going to go a little quick here because of one specific match. And then also, secondly, we kind of want to get to brackets and playoffs because that's the new big thing now.
Yes, there is a lot of ground to cover, so we are going to jump right into it. We're going to start with Aurora, coach of the Hoensbroek Hunters, versus Firebolt, coach of the Minnesota Magikarps. If you caught our coverage last week, then you will remember that this, I think, was arguably the most important match for determining playoffs.
Yes.
Well, maybe not the most, maybe like second most important match.
Either way, the thing is, with a lot of the matches left, they were all important. One of the things about this, though, Firebolt needed a win, and as long as he didn't get 4-0'd by Aurora, he was guaranteed second place. It didn't matter.
Well, okay, so that's not necessarily true.
Not necessarily
because if Firebolt won by a slim margin and then Nick won by a lot, I think it was still feasible.
Yeah, with
no, it wasn't actually. No, Nick could never pass him up.
No,
so maybe it was just literally like the 4-0.
With
the thing, okay, so we went over it during the bracket analysis last week when we were talking about like what the paths to victory were.
Yep.
And really, this is do or die for Aurora. Aurora only has a decent shot of making it into playoffs if she can beat Firebolt, and she gets a way better shot at making it into playoffs if she wins by a margin of 4 or more.
Yes.
Because that would close the gap of their differential, and then they would tie at 4-0, or she would pass him up in terms of differential at a 5-0 or a 6-0 over him. So
yep.
Aurora really gunning for the 4-0 or better victory, whereas Firebolt, still possible for him to fall out despite how much of a sort of
being at a
monstrously large gap
12.
he had. Yeah, I mean, he was chilling. Really felt good about this. All he needed to do was kill 3 of Aurora's Pokemon. So this being kind of, I think, the first one of the whole week
actually,
that
just
got
kill
played
any
out.
of Aurora's Pokemon is what it is. As long as he didn't lose to Aurora and get killed by 4 Pokemon.
Well, yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying, right? If he killed 3 of her Pokemon,
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, no. Yeah, so it's
I thought winning circumstance rather than losing circumstance killing.
no, that's a losing circumstance.
I was in the wrong, Cody. I am sorry.
And that's all right. And hey, I forgive you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Look, here's the thing. In the event that, and this is kind of the way that I think about it. I don't know about you, but if I'm one of the players in Pearl, I think, what is the minimum I need to do to ensure like a favorable outcome? Or, if there's a couple of different outcomes that are favorable, like what's the worst I'm willing to do? And I think for Aurora, she really wants to win it. She wants to take it by as wide a margin as possible. As Firebolt, you can genuinely just set your goal at, I need to beat 3 of Aurora's Pokemon, and then I'm guaranteed to be above her. And then I only need to be above one other person.
Yep.
And based on how things are shaping up, since Nick and Doodle had to play, whoever lost was definitely going to be below Firebolt no matter what. Him maintaining a spot above Aurora, that means he's above Aurora and above like whoever loses between Mass and Doodle, then Nick and Doodle, and then possibly still above Mass if he doesn't win. So
yep.
Firebolt, all he needed to do to secure his spot and feel pretty good that he was going to advance it either in second or third seed is to take 3 of Aurora's Pokemon.
Yeah, and with that being said, let's get into it and we can talk about their teams while the match starts up.
We can do that.
Aurora's talking about bringing out Togedemaru, which is kind of an issue for Firebolt, especially after that Iron Head and the flinch especially. Yeah. Oh.
So, Togedemaru actually, it was basically kind of a done deal that it was going to come Scarf this week because it is 1 base speed faster than Tapu Lele, and of course has a type advantage over it being Steel against Fairy. So Aurora brought it Scarf, and it kind of ends up being a huge problem because she has it not sturdy, but iron barbs.
Yeah.
And so you actually see here, I believe he goes right for the dual wing beat. And he's taking that chip back. But then also, since it's Scarf Togedemaru, it outruns Mega Aerodactyl without a Dragon Dance, and suddenly, you're kind of in trouble. And so, for Aurora to have gotten that flinch early, if she had not flinched the Glastrier lead, Glastrier would have killed it with high horsepower, which would have changed the dynamic of this whole match so much.
I love that built-in Scarf, by the way, from Lele. Super nice. Get a
built-in
good Psychic
Sash, I think is what you mean.
Oh, sorry. Yep, Sash. I guess Scarf and Sash makes up all the time. I don't know what it is. But either way, getting that special defense drop was stunning and worked out really well in Firebolt's favor to take out Starmie.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is this Togedemaru can just keep U-turning on everything.
Yeah. Togedemaru being Scarf puts way too much pressure on Lele, way too much pressure on Aerodactyl, and being able to U-turn instead of Volt Switch even puts some amount of pressure on Gastrodon, because all you need to do is click U-turn if you're Aurora, call Firebolt's, switch out, and then you've got in Serena, which basically gets a kill every time.
Yeah.
So,
which, by the way, this Balloon Twin Tower... Oh, I hate saying that.
Yeah, Twin Tower,
Firebolt did try to read the switch out, which he did read, but Twin Tower being Balloon made Earthquake just not likely. Power Whip missing sucks for Aurora.
Yeah, this whole thing just gets stupid from here on. It ultimately, Aurora has pretty rough luck for the rest of this match, kind of, but then Firebolt also has some bad luck later. Aurora got Spadef dropped. This is another power. Yeah. Aurora got Spadef dropped on the Psychic with her Starmie, and then died to 2 Psychics from Lele, essentially getting the confirmation that it was a Choice Scarf Lele variant. A lot of scarfing going on in these matches. Yep. And again, Duraludon having Air Balloon makes it a potential switch into an Earthquake read from Aerodactyl, and then you're forcing Aerodactyl to go into dual wing beat, and then if you dual wing beat into the Togedemaru, then you're taking the barbs damage, and
Aurora,
if Togedemaru was dead turn 1 as perhaps it should have been, you would have seen a very different game.
Oh, for sure. One of the things to take note of is that Aurora has just really brought good Pokemon to deal with a lot of Firebolt's strong Pokemon. By the way, I've noticed something else. Aurora has 4 Pokemon left.
And Firebolt has 0.
Yeah. With that being
said,
Aurora has now, at least in terms of where we're at so far, jumped to second place above Firebolt, getting the head-to-head, and they're now tied at 4-3 plus 8.
Yes, that is huge for Aurora and hugely bad for Firebolt. Because again, Firebolt in theory should be okay still, because he will always advance over either Nick or Doodle.
Yes.
But he won't necessarily always advance over Mass if Mass does well in his match against Vincent. And, again, Vincent, really strong, undefeated player. Mass, maybe a very losable match from his end. But now Firebolt went from feeling pretty comfortable to now needing to watch Mass versus Vincent like a hawk to hope that he doesn't let it slip out from underneath him.
And that's just the circumstance of this whole entire week. Is literally you're relying not just on your playing in your match, but everyone else's play style in their match and how they do. And that's what has been so fascinating and fun with Pearl Division. There's so many stakes, and it's not all under your control whatsoever.
Yeah, in Pearl, all you can do is your best, and then it's in God's hands after that.
Amen.
There's nothing else you can do. And so let's see what God had in store for our next 2 players, which you are going to introduce.
With Doodle, of course, coaching the Jobbin Wobbuffets versus Nick of the
Loafville Lanturns.
Yeah. Look at us. We said it at the same time. I timed it right.
Sandwiches.
Oh no.
We finish each other's comma? Okay, look.
Finish each other's comments.
So with Aurora and Mass coming out the way it did, this one got even more
Aurora
important,
Fireball.
and it was already... sorry, fucking A. Aurora Fireball. So it's late. It's past my bedtime. I'm sorry.
No, for Sleepy Cody.
Here, you take it. You take it.
This is a huge match, and we said that about every single match as it is. But Doodled wanting a win of any form, it doesn't matter if he 1-0s, 2-0s, whatever it is, that guarantees him playoffs with the exception of Mass and how he does against Vincent. Nick will drop out. Nick, all he also needs is just a win of any form or sort. Nick has a low differential, and at this point with how Aurora and Firebolt shaked up, he needs a win to guarantee playoffs. If he doesn't get that win with his differential where it is, he's out. That's it. Doodled's in, Nick is out. So it doesn't matter what they win by, one of them just needs to win at this point, with the exception of Doodled, depending on differential for Mass. But
so here's what's funny about this. At this point in time, if Doodled wins this 1-0 exactly, we get a 3-way tie with a circular head-to-head between Doodled, Aurora, and Firebolt, because Doodled beat Aurora, Aurora beat Firebolt, and Firebolt beat Doodled.
Yep.
So that would have been, because it would all be in 4 and 3 plus 8, and it's kind of just the interesting like dynamic, because Mass, fucking A, not Mass. Sorry, we'll get to Mass.
Yeah.
So Nick has the win record that he needs to be a threat at this point in the division, but his differential's not there. Conversely, Doodled 1 win short, but has more than enough differential to burn.
Yep.
It is entirely based on who wins this match. If Nick wins, he jumps up yet another game. He jumps up to second place because he's going to have 5 wins, where everyone else can only have 4 maximum, besides Vincent, obviously. Yeah. Whereas Doodled beats Nick by any amount. He has the differential to burn. Unless it's just 1, in which case he gets into a weird 3-way circular tie.
Yeah,
and then,
which is funny, because that's not the weird 3-way circular tie we talked about last time, if people are savvy to that.
No,
we talked about a different 3-way circular tie.
We did. And it was actually, you know what? What's funny is if Mass, in theory, had won his match by, I think it was like 2 or 3, I forget.
Yeah.
They, all 4 of them, being like, if Doodle won this 1-0 after Firebolt and Aurora's match, all 4 of those players would be 4 and 3 plus 8.
Yeah.
So
I'm actually 4 and 3 plus 8. Spoilers.
Hey, well, there you go. And congrats on that, by the way.
Thank you. We'll talk about that later, though.
We will get back to that later. So basically, it's all on the line. Whoever loses this is going home.
Yep. With that being said, let's see who gets to go home. Who gets that last ticket to Clarksville?
Yeah, I like they say who gets to go home. It's not like you don't want to be here anymore.
You know what? Sometimes you don't want to be in playoffs.
That's true. Yeah, okay. Rillaboom likes to click U-turn because, you know.
Oh, that Fire Punch, which
Fire Punch.
This is, I think, the first time we get to really see an offensive Drudigon. I keep wanting to say Tropius. Yeah. By the way,
it's not that offensive. I mean, the Fire Punch, you know, it's got rocks. It probably has glare. It has Dragon Tail. It reveals later. So.
By the way, this dying to Life Orb and not Burn or Rough Skin.
Or Rough Skin. Yeah, it would have taken so much residual damage that turn just after getting burnt plus Rough Skin plus Life Orb.
Yeah, insane.
But it's actually, losing that early is rough for Doodled because he only has 2 super consistent answers to Calm Mind Comfy, which are Unaware, Clefable, and Escavalier.
Yep.
And now Escavalier's dead.
Yeah. We also don't see Rocky Helmet, by the way, on Tropius for the first time.
It had leftovers.
It had leftovers.
But
yeah. Nick has been running a Rocky Helmet the past like 4 or 5 matches, I feel like.
Yeah, because, I mean, that's delicious chip damage, my friend.
Tasty, scrumptious.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's the scrumptious? This Wish.
Yeah. We're also seeing kind of an issue with beating up this Chansey because now Doodle's physical attackers, I mean, he wants to get that knockoff, but he's kind of allowing things to come in and receive that Wish Pass from Chansey.
I wonder if using high horsepower earlier would have actually killed the Drudigon instead of Rapid Spinning when he did.
There's a lot of, you know, kind of 50-50-ish scenarios there. I mean, you want to spam Knock unless you're spamming Knock into a Drudigon with no item that has, it has a Rough Skin.
Yeah.
So you can't really freely spam anything in front of this team that Nick has, but you do want to get, you want to knock that Chansey's Heavy Light, right? You want to U-turn away from Rillaboom. But Nick is just getting every single one of these positioning moments, like these reads, these predictions. He's just getting it right every time. You'll see another huge Wish Pass here into Rillaboom where it soaks up a Hydro Pump here and then gets right back up to full.
Yep, back up to full. It's nice using Wish with Pokemon with a lot of health.
Yeah. And then, Rillaboom just U-turns right back out, and Doodle is forced to sack something here.
And at this point,
with
Doodle's Pokemon's health kind of dwindling at this point, Doodle's very much on a back foot. But by the way, bringing Grassy Glide on Maractus is really fun.
It's cool. There's a lot of interesting tech on display here that we didn't get to see super realized.
Petal Blizzard, super fun, by the way.
Yeah. I think Maractus is really good. I think it's underrated.
Rillaboom coming out.
Dies. Somewhat risky from Doodle. He kind of hard calls out the Volt Switch instead of going into Chance. He goes into a Volt Absorber. He does get the read right, but man, if that thing took a Hydro Pump, would have been unfortunate. And also, this is so specs. It's doing way too much damage. And also, it got this Spadef drop, which means now this thing can't stay in and has to switch out.
Yep, and Doodle need to go to this, and at this point, he goes back into Jinx, gets tricked. Doodle enjoying some nice heavy-duty boots. Would be really nice if he didn't die, actually.
True. I mean, he wouldn't hate it. And then Clefable eats that Psychic just about. Gets a special attack drop on Moonblast, which will allow another one of his Pokemon to live a hit, but not two, so he has to sack into Maractus to maybe make something out of this.
Yep. Nick just playing really cautious, by the way, and being very intentional with his switches and just keeping an eye on the health of his Pokemon. As you've been looking, a lot of his Pokemon are very much still healthy. With Comfey only coming out for the first time here, being at full health now, and Donphan being at 9%, Triage takes the win, and Nick getting a clean 6-0 against Doodle. And that's not to say Doodle played bad, because he didn't.
Yeah, but Nick just got every read correct.
Yeah.
I mean, he was positioning so well. He was keeping his rocks up. He was whittling away answers to his offensive threats, and when his defensive and offensive threats were getting lowered, he was consistently getting the Wish Pass because Escavalier died too early. So really, it was kind of just like a Jenga tower of problems for Doodle, where you could take out a couple of little pieces, get chip on that, maybe sack that, but eventually it's going to start crumbling around you because you won't be able to deal with a fast, hard-hitting Jinx, or, a constant U-turning Rillaboom, or maybe a very thick Chansey that you can't muscle through because you lost one of your best physical attackers. Yeah,
and I think one of the other things that was going against Doodle is honestly team matchup, because taking a look at Comfey, it does really nice work against a few of these Pokemon. And Doodle just was kind of, not an uphill battle, but had a rough time, I think, just working against Nick's Pokemon, because Nick has so much going on.
Yeah, I mean, he had the right answers, but it was kind of just too early. Escavalier got popped by the Fire Punch, and I think just from there it started to very slowly unravel over the course of the next, 30 turns, where, Nick was constantly getting an edge, constantly getting the pivots where he needed them, and made a couple of hard predictions, and soaked that Volt Switch with the Volt Absorb, and started getting really nasty Spec Shadow Balls off, and it was just too much for Doodle to handle.
Yeah, but well played by both, and we'll have to take a look at the brackets when we get there. But Cody, we have a different match to talk about.
I feel like you got a little sullen. Why is that?
Well, you want to introduce who we're talking about first?
I mean, of course, it's our other really important match. We've got Vincent, coach of the Heerlen Hawluchas, affectionately known as Spoop Man in some portions of the internet, versus Inimitable Mass, to Hugh Man, coach of the Minneapolis Magnezones. Mass is, especially for Firebolt after this point, Firebolt is crossing his fingers hoping that Vincent stays undefeated this whole season. Vincent crossing his fingers hoping he stays undefeated this whole season. Even Aurora crossing her fingers hoping that Vincent stays undefeated this whole season. Kind of the world is against Mass now because, Aurora and Firebolt are both, to an extent, relying on Mass performing poorly.
Yes. Because at the rate we're at, with Nick having won his fight, he's guaranteed second place. So, if Mass...
And Doodle's out, yeah.
And Doodle's out. And if Mass wins this fight to a decent degree, that bumps Aurora out.
Well, it would bump Firebolt out because she has the advantage over
Yeah.
Firebolt.
Okay, so it would bump Firebolt out. Yeah, you're right. So Aurora would get 4th place. Sorry, I had them flipped in.
But Aurora, right. But, the thing is, before those other matches had been played, Aurora knew, as far as it was like, I think this was played before Nick and Doodled, but after Aurora Firebolt. But even during the prep week, like, Aurora and Firebolt really wanted Mass to lose this. And really, it was Mass's to lose. Like, Mass, this is going to be his hardest match of the whole division, certainly. And just even in the lineup, in the run-up to this match, Mass was practicing really hard because he needed to win, and he needed to win by a decent amount in order to have a shot at making it into playoffs. Because, he was sitting there in contention this whole season, just barely getting swatted away over and over and over.
Yeah.
And now, staring down the barrel of a bunch of other people with 4 wins now, or 5 wins. If you're Mass, you want to be one of those people. You want to try and, weasel your way in.
Definitely.
So, he decided to commit to a strategy, which I think I don't know if we've ever really touched on this during the recaps, but Mass has a very bulky team. Celesteela, Amoonguss, Vaporeon. Yep. Very thick Pokemon. And in this matchup, actually, he reveals a sub-Wisp Gengar.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got a team that's very interested in playing semi-stall to stall.
Yep. And Vaporeon, by the way, looking at this team lineup with a couple exceptions, once a few of Spookmans like Sceptile and potentially Zeraora and Lantern are out, Vaporeon just sits on a lot of these other Pokemon.
That's true depending on the set. You have to be worried about, Zeraora can beat it, Lantern can beat it, even Zamazenta in the right scenario can beat it, and Mega Sceptile can beat it. So, Vincent, Vaporeon can be a problem for sure, but more problematic, I think, would even be like Amoonguss and Celesteela.
Yeah.
Even Flareon can be difficult if you don't have something prepped for it.
Yeah. Because it hits hard. I don't know if you know this, but Flareon's got 130 base attack?
130 attack, yep.
Yeah. It hits
hard. And it gets
Guts. Guts Facade?
Off base 130. It's not stab, but it's strong. So it's really just a matter of Mass, wants to play very slow, very methodical, wants to force scenarios where he can get in and hit things hard with his Dugtrio or his Flareon.
Yep.
And Vincent really doesn't want to let him do that. Vincent doesn't have a lot of offensive pressure, but Zamazenta can make some stuff happen. Zeraora can make some stuff happen. Mega Sceptile can make some stuff happen. So, man, they both wanted it really, really bad, and they were both willing to do whatever it takes.
I think we should get this match going because we're gonna do a little something with this match as we get into it.
Right, get comfortable.
Yeah, get comfortable. Aurora and I did this, where we kind of put a match off to the side and let that play out while we talked about the next one.
Yeah.
We're going to do that with this one because,
we are.
This match goes on for a bit. We do see sub on Celesteela, Earthquake doing some nice damage. Vincent does not want to stay in on that.
I also want to give props to Vincent for the double kick tech. I like that for breaking Dugtrio Sash.
Yep. Mass getting a nice Conberry off, but then clicking Leech Seed on
Leech Seed into a grass type,
yeah.
But now, we're going to start seeing some dynamics emerging. So, obviously Vincent's not going to stay in on the Sludge Bomb, so he goes hard into Golbat, gets some Air Slash Chip, Sceptile comes back out, Stone Edge does quite a decent amount, 42%, and we are revealed 42%. To be Scarf. Yep, that is faster than a max speed Sceptile.
Yep. Amoonguss just taking hits all day from Zeraora, that's what it's called, thank you.
Yep.
By the way, Goggles Golbat is kind of crazy.
Really cool. if you're like a VGC player, you'll be familiar with the idea of safety goggles. Amoonguss and spore abuse is very common in that kind of format.
Yep.
And so safety goggles you tend to see a lot. You don't tend to see them as much in singles, but when you're very scared of Amoonguss and don't want to go to sleep, you may in fact want to consider running them.
Yeah. We do see Dugtree over there, and we saw Volt Switch a couple of times already on Lantern. Mass is likely running Rocks and Dugtrio. That could be really nice to get up. We do see a bit of switching going on because we realize Spookman does not have a lot of answers to this Vaporeon set currently with how the switching is going. He's trying to find ways to really hit this, and he's struggling to find them.
So Acid Armor, so basically there's two things that have conspired for this set to be as effective as it is right now. Firstly, Vincent is running like full physical attack or like Zero Aura Zamazenta, and like of course he would, right?
Yeah.
But Zamazenta will on occasion run like Volt Switch, and that would be nice. But this Zero Aura, only has Plasma Fists that can do that, and even Plasma Fists at 4 times defense is not going to be doing that much damage to Vaporeon, and it's also risking like a Scald Burn every turn, so you don't want that. Yeah. And then Zamazenta, same deal but worse. All it can do is Wild Charge, do self recoil for very little damage, can't reliably heal itself, and is also risking getting Scald Burn.
Yeah, because Wild Charge, this is a full Fizz Def Vaporeon, and having had a Vaporeon of this sort of set as well, like Zamazenta's Wild Charge doing 15, maybe 20% tops. Like, that's not a lot of damage.
Yeah. And you see here, like if Vincent had like double Volt Switch between like Zero Aura and Lantern, that would be one thing where you could, force it to keep using its wishes over and over, or maybe force him to go into Dugtrio hard.
Yeah.
I also don't agree with this. I don't agree with that approach right there of him going in and trying that Wild Charge, because it would have done very little damage in the best case scenario. In the worst case scenario, you're risking getting.
And even then, Mass should have just risked clicking Scald anyways, because you want to burn that Zamazenta. Like, you can take a hit from Zamazenta with 4 times Acid Armor and Max Fizz Def. You're not worried about any sort of damage. One of the issues I'm seeing early on, Mass has been on Vaporeon for like 20 or 30 turns. Mass is not making any steps into progression. Vincent's trying to force this out, but the problem is Mass is burning through so much PP. He finally gets a switch here and does a good job looking for the Volt Switch. Personally, I think Dugtrio should have gone in there, but that's just me.
Yeah, Moltres comes in, but Vincent has the forethought to U-turn out, doesn't want to risk like, burning up into Vaporeon or something, so.
Yeah.
And now the status quo has been set again.
Is this faster than Flareon? Yeah, it is faster than Flareon. Darn. Because like I say, Facade on Lantern would have been really good.
Yeah, I mean, Lantern does get close to dying multiple times in this replay, but it always, manages to come back from the brink.
Yep.
Also, that Heat Wave miss is quite unfortunate, because it would have certainly done a decent amount of damage.
Yeah. That's a substitute on a Gengar.
Yes, there are.
That's a nasty
especially
plot.
in older generations. Okay, yeah, that's kind of fun. So in older generations, you can run bulkier Gengar. That's kind of a thing in like Gen 3, like ADV. But this is like a bulkier Gengar that's also nasty plot at the same time.
Yep.
It actually may have been worth nasty plotting again or something. But
yeah, it might have been actually. Would have been really good, especially with Gengar's base speed being... It's very fast.
Yeah. Now, Mass is playing way too fast and loose here. He allows his Gengar to die.
Yep.
Amoonguss is back in.
Well, one of the things he could have done is actually, had Mass planned that, his Vaporeon's Water Absorb. The only thing Lantern has to really hit Gengar is Volt Switch and Water Absorb.
Yes, that is true. I mean, I think that Mass, he does 2 really rough ones here. And you'll notice another one right now. So he switches in Amoonguss to soak up close combat, soaks up a second close combat. He goes for a Sludge Bomb read on, something. But then he sacks this.
Yeah.
Loses a massive part of his defensive core.
Yeah.
And then Vincent forgets that it was Scarf and revealed Scarf, and then loses his Zamazenta to a very telegraphed Earthquake. And then reveals finally he's also Scarf on Zero Aura.
Yep.
And now Facade is quite dangerous. There's no resist. So we're seeing a lot of progression really fast down to 3v3 turn 54.
Yep.
and then this is a kind of a blunder from Mass, but you can't really blame him for not knowing this. Plasma Fists, if you're not aware, has the same effect as Ion Deluge, which is I think a Gen 6 move, or maybe a Gen 7 move. No.
Zebstrika gets it.
Yes, Zebstrika gets it. And basically the idea is that it turns moves that turn into an electric type move that are normal type. And this has kind of the semi-intended benefit for Zeraora, that if you Plasma Fist in front of something that is going to use a normal type move, it turns into electric, and then you are always Volt Absorb, so you will heal or be immune to that move. And so that is what ended up happening, and Mass loses his Flareon, bringing him down to only Celesteela and Vaporeon against Moltres, Zeraora, and Lanturn, which in theory, should not be very good.
Yeah, in theory. One of the points we can now bring up, by the way, with Mass being at 2 and Vincent being at 3, Mass can no longer surpass Firebolt or Aurora, which at this point has now guaranteed that unless he's running nothing, because he can't bring back Pokemon from fainting. So, Mass is guaranteed them not make playoffs at this point. Now, by the way, earlier, those Plasma Fists against Vaporeon were doing no damage at all. So, at this point, for Mass to make any major progression, he needs to play aggressive and force some switches around and play around this Volt Switch and Scald Lanturn.
It's half true now. So he can't play as aggressive as he'd like because Zeraora is still in the mix. And if he switches out, then suddenly, he doesn't have his Acid Armor. Plasma Fist is doing a lot more damage. Celesteela never really wants to take a Plasma Fist either.
Cody, I'd hate to do this. We're at turn 70. We got a while to go. I would like to jump ship real quick.
Not yet. I want the Moltres to reveal what it is, which I think is about to happen.
Okay.
So, Vaporeon is kind of stuck in front of Lanturn,
and
Moltres reveals it has Burn Up. And I don't know if it goes on to reveal its other moves.
It's revealed as 2 of them at least. There's a third one.
Yep, U-turn, Burn Up, Roost. And I don't think it reveals... Oh, no, there it is, Defog. So, what is the problem you see here?
Burn Up is its only attacking move. It gets U-turn, but that's it. And it gets burned because it's typeless right now.
Yeah, that is funny. So here's really the big problem. So there's 2 problems with the only fire coverage being Burn Up on Moltres. First problem. When you use Burn Up, you cannot use Burn Up again until you switch out. While you're not fire type, you can't use Burn Up. And it's, it's just kind of like how it is. So when he uses Burn Up and he no longer can use it while he's out, suddenly all he can do is U-turn, Defog, and Roost. Which means that Celesteela, which is quad resistant to U-turn, and obviously can't be damaged by Roost or Defog, suddenly actually hard-walled Moltres. Second problem. So that wouldn't necessarily be that much of an issue, since Spoopman has the advantage in terms of Pokemon that can switch in and out, and PP. Except Burn Up only has 8 PP. So Mass doesn't actually need to PP stall every move off every Pokemon.
Which he's doing
He effectively
right here,
only needs to PP stall all 8 Burn Ups. And if he can get rid of all 8 Burn Ups, then suddenly Celesteela effectively cannot be killed by Moltres. And it can Earthquake and outlast the Lanturn. It's only really scared of Zeraora. So if Zeraora dies and there's no Burn Ups, Mass, it's basically impossible for him to lose.
And with Vincent clicking Burn Up there again, the only thing he can click at this point is Rooster U-turn. And so here's the thing. Celesteela can come in at this point. Great crit, by the way. Doesn't do enough to kill this thing, but it sure gets it pretty close. Celesteela can freely come in on Moltres because it can't use a fire attack. And I don't know if Mass knows that or not. I don't know if... so Mass likely didn't know that once you use Burn Up, you can no longer use it because you're not a fire type anymore. And that is something to, just consider, because now Mass goes into this Wish passes, which I believe I remember hearing that this is the first time he realized he could do that. During this match. Because this isn't going to do anything to that. Even Lanturn takes 50% to this. So, with that being revealed, Mass has opportunities to kill Lanturn and Zeraora with Earthquake if he times it right.
Yes. He can Earthquake to catch them off guard, and can, if he positions correctly with his Substitute and his Leech Seed, force more Burn Ups and and or forced switches. Like
Yep.
here, this U-turn into Zeraora, which will now go for a Plasma Fist, which doesn't kill, and then he loses Zeraora to Earthquake,
Yep.
which is a huge problem. So turn 100, things have actually swung slightly in Mass's favor if he plays his Wish Passes correctly,
Yep.
if he burns the burn-ups, which is not necessarily that difficult to do. Mass actually has a great chance of hard stalling the rest of these Pokemon because Volt Switch only doing like 20 or 30. You've still got your Leech Seed on deck if you need it. You've got Earthquake, which is killing much faster.
And the other thing is too, whenever Mass just protected against a burn up there, and the option against Moltres is don't protect. Let it hit you with a burn up. It's only doing 26 or so, like a Volt Switch is. Then you can protect afterwards, then you can Wish. Vaporeon has so much recovery and health. You can just let it burn up against you. So you can gain back your HP and just let it run through those. Because now that it's here, you just click Wish, go back into Celesteela. U-turn's doing, I think the calc was 1 to 4% damage. If not less than that, because you're at 4%. U-turn ain't gonna kill you.
So basically, Vincent is pretty comfortable with Lanturn in front of Vaporeon, and he also doesn't feel that scared of staying in front of Vaporeon with a burnt up Moltres, but he obviously can't do it forever. And he's now committing to the PP stall.
Yep.
And Mass, if playing optimally, would realize this, would get in Celesteela, would start threatening, because you can just start clicking Earthquake or Sub or whatever. You wish past your thing, and boom, suddenly he's way back up at 62%.
Yeah.
And now Leech Seed is really threatening. Earthquake even is really threatening if he goes for it hard here.
There it is.
Which he does, but then he knows he's outsped by this, or should know he's outsped by this, so you should predict that he'll Volt Switch out.
Yep. Click on Leech
and then
Seed,
he Earthquakes again. So if he subs, he has to burn a burn up, or he has to take an Earthquake on Lanturn. If Mass would just sub, he would be able to position without even having to make any reads.
Oh, yeah.
But Mass is too scared, he doesn't understand how to do it.
Yeah.
And now, basically, if played optimally, Vincent can still get a decent edge because he can, in theory, infinitely switch back and forth as long as Mass isn't threatening him with offensive moves, which Mass is relatively scared of doing.
Yeah.
But you see here, and again, this thing is faster, so Volt Switch comes out. You can't Earthquake it. You can't Earthquake it. You cannot Earthquake it.
And he clicks Flamethrower, which is his other move, by the way.
Yeah, which... whatever. I mean, in this end game, it's not great. It makes some amount of sense versus Zamazenta.
We'll let us play it up in the corner.
We're done. We're done.
For about
this goes on
80
for a while.
more turns almost.
Basically, the short version of the rest of this match is Mass is advantaged in all ways and never ever pushes his advantage a single time.
Yep. Yeah, that's what he needs to do.
Vincent is comfortable as long as Mass never pushes the advantage. To stay in front of Vaporeon forever with his Lanturn, and he goes on to do that for another 70
turns. Or so, 70 turns. Yeah, like 70 more turns. So with that being said, let's jump into the final match we have to talk about. Would you like to introduce... No, you introduced the last one, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah. So we have GTP Woody of the Schaumburg Salamences and Jake of the San Fran Furrets, and they're fighting for their first win.
Yes,
that's
San
exciting.
Fran Furrets coming in relatively late, having to pick up some rough matches against Aurora and Vincent, unplayed from the previous team. Now ending in front of GTP Woody, who has gone this whole season without getting a single win, but has seen a bit of a turnaround in terms of getting a couple of individual kills, which was a step forward from the first half of his season. So going into this, one of them is going to get their first win. Yes.
And we got quite a bit of a team lineup, and the same thing from Woody as he brought up a couple weeks ago, actually. So
Woody keeps it pretty consistent. Jake bringing the Dugong and the Lucario, I think, is new.
Yep.
There's not much to say about it. I think from team preview, the thing that has jumped out at me from the first moment I even saw this matchup was Woody loves Dragon Dance Mega Charizard X, and Ditto loves Dragon Dance Mega Charizard X.
It certainly does. Well, that being said, let's go ahead and take a look and see how this match plays out. I can't believe that match is still going over there.
And it will for a bit.
Switching off, Jake clicking bulk up because he has no reason not to.
Yep, it's very safe.
And Drain Punch just OHKOs. I don't know if crit mattered. I think it might have, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, I think it depends on the Copperage set.
Yep.
But it wouldn't have died to a power whip, but it's +1 defense, is non-stab.
Yeah. Had Jake actually bulked up here, I think he could have just killed this Porygon.
Yeah, the thing is, this the stab combination of fighting and water is so deadly to Woody's whole team. He has no real resist for it until... Well, actually, he just doesn't have any resist for it.
He doesn't have any resist for it, no.
Best case scenario is he can take neutral hits from both as Mega Charizard, but he can't hard switch in without being weak to water.
Yep. And Body Press doing some nice damage there, and the Rain really helping Jake out there. He's been really enjoying the Rain into Ferrothorn tech. It's been really fun. Tracing Iron Barbs is so interesting.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. It really shows why Ferrothorn is such a staple on Rain teams. Removing that 4 times weakness or mitigating it somewhat makes a chunky, difficult to kill Pokemon even chunkier, even harder to kill. And again, this Poliwrath, such an issue for Woody to deal with.
Yeah. One of the things is Jake at this point probably should have switched out because the Iron Barbs are just doing so much to him with the Toxic Addition on top, which, by the way, it's funny he has lasted this long with his Drain Punch just doing so much damage to this thing.
Yeah, the Drain Punch keeps topping him off even though he's taking 30+% already from Toxic per turn, and he's taking Iron Barb damage every
there
turn.
It is. You see him just he's tired of this, and he just bulks up one more time, just finally kill this thing.
Yeah, but too little, too late. I mean, he gets the trade, which is nice, but there goes Woody's 3rd kill of the season.
Surf doing some decent damage. We do see Life Orb chip there. So, Cody, would you like to explain that sort of thing?
Yes. We had a very productive and friendly conversation about why this makes a lot of sense.
I cried.
Yes, it was great. So, look. If you are a real elite Pokemon player, then you will be aware that the ability Sheer Force interacts with the item Life Orb in a weird way, where it still receives the bonus damage from Life Orb, but does not take the 10% passive damage per hit. Unless you are using a move that does not activate Sheer Force itself, like Surf, which does not have a secondary effect, in which case you do still take the Life Orb damage. And in either way, you still get the damage buff. And there's no consistency applied to it, and it's annoying and weird and esoteric, and I don't like it.
Yep. Don't understand why it does that, but that's just our thinking with that. By the way, there's the Ditto Dragon Claw with a Dragon Dance. Man, this thing is terrifying.
But hey, this thing being at full actually kind of is fine.
Yeah. And at this point, Lucario comes in and just clicks a move. Water Pulse, okay. And just kills it. And Jake gets his first win of the season.
Yeah, and honestly, Woody can't hate that too much,
Yeah.
Bringing him down to 2 Pokemon, he literally tripled his kill count this game from the rest of the season, which is genuinely great. I know it's kind of a derisive thing to say. I know I'm kind of giving Woody a hard time. But, you set a goalpost, you reach the goalpost. Woody did manage to get 6 kills this season. Yeah. And honestly, by the end of week 4, he was in real danger of not taking a single kill in any of his 7 games. Yeah. But Jake getting an opportunity in the bottom of the 9th inning to actually pull out a win and bring some glory, man. Putting some respect on the San Fran Furrets name.
I am excited to see what he does next season. I think Jake shows a lot of potential. We saw the first fight with Aurora, and then we saw him getting his first win here. I think he just needs to spend time, get to know the game, get to know how Pokemon works, and I think he's going to be really scary down the road.
Yeah, and I think a large portion of that understanding is going to very naturally come as osmosis when you're forced to kind of build your own team completely from scratch. You skip on a lot of the upfront learning.
Back to this real quick.
Please do.
So, we're basically wrapped up at this point, and you can see Celesteela's finally down. You're like, well, what happened? Mass at this point is kind of given up and is just clicking Flamethrower on Moltres instead of Leech Seed, which would give it back some health and make Moltres switch out.
And Vincent just, cruelly wants to force this thing to struggle to death.
Yeah, basically. And that's just the thing about this is like Mass had every opportunity to be able to push it forward, push that envelope of like he can get that win over Vincent, because I think he has brought Vincent the closest to losing. Is that right or no?
Easily, yeah. He's the only person to kill Zamazenta so far at all.
Yeah. And he's done a good
Well, actually,
job.
okay, it's not fair to say he's the one who got closest, because Aurora should have beaten Vincent, but she missed the focus blast.
That's
so
right. That's what it was.
It kind of depends on your, on the way you interpret that question, because
Yeah.
Aurora, effectively should have beaten Vincent, but did not manage to do so, whereas Mass should have beaten Vincent as well, but whereas Aurora got unlucky, Mass failed to make the plays that needed to be made.
Yep. And Vaporeon here just not able to deal with this. Are we out of burn-ups at this point? We have one burn-up
Nope.
left, and Vincent does not want to use it. He basically just wants this thing to struggle to death.
Yep.
And it certainly has.
And so it does. And down goes Ian after a grueling 193 turn battle. Some of you, again, if you come from a competitive Pokemon background, you might be like, well, yeah, 193 turns is pretty long, but at least it wasn't like a 200 plus or a 300 or, God forbid, like a 500 turn plus game, because that stuff does happen
Yeah, it does.
in Smog Tours and stuff, like a decent amount. It'll happen at a higher level of play. But in our draft league, you got to understand, man, 193 turns, that's the longest double dip game of all time. And it's
Before
not even
this
close.
was me versus Aurora?
I think so. In a similar end game with a paralyzed
Very similar with a
Vaporeon.
paralyzed Vaporeon, yeah.
And I think that went for like 107 turns, or something
it's
like that.
it's between 107 117, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
I don't remember
So,
exactly where, but it was over 100
they got
turns
a
for sure.
Yeah, they got to clean like 85 turns on you.
Oh, yeah. And this goes to Vincent, and we already said this earlier, Mass at this point had no way to bounce back and make it into playoffs when he was down to the 2 Pokemon. And it's a shame, really, but they both played well, and Vincent is undefeated for this season.
Yeah. Yep, Vincent manages to be the one and only player in the entire league that makes it out of the division unscathed, completely undefeated, going 7-0 plus 24. So that is Pearl, the most insane division possibly of all time. Double dip, just history made from start to finish, even from like as early as like week 2 or 3.
Yep.
Pearl division very quickly became the division to watch as a spectator, and now we are on the other side of it, knowing what we do know. And just as one final note on Jake, which I'd like to just get out there before we move into the rankings and then the playoffs bracket. Just to finish the thought that I was going to say was, he has shown a lot of promise. And I think a lot of the learning about your team does come from playing with it, but even more of it, I think, comes from drafting it and putting together a team that you're excited to use with Pokemon you like, and then Pokemon that complement the Pokemon you like.
Yep.
And inheriting a team where you can only pick so much out of a limited pool, it makes it even harder. So for him to have brought it as close as he did and to have ultimately taken home that one win, I think that's something to be super proud of.
Yeah. For sure. And even then, one of the things is like with what he had limited left to draft, he got some scary Pokemon. Poliwrath and like Ferrothorn were such a duo for him.
Oh yeah, they genuinely were so good.
Yeah. But you said Vincent was in first at 7-0 plus 24, but there's a few other people who made it to playoffs. Would you like to name them off?
I would love to list off the players who made it to playoffs. So, at the end of Pearl, Week 7, the final standings, we have got in first place Vincent of the Heerlen Hawluchas at a 7-0 plus 24. In second place, kind of snuck up in there. I mean, looked strong all season, but came really close to losing it here at the end because of his differential. But it ultimately did not matter. Our friend Nick of the Loafville Lanturns with a commanding 5-2 and plus 8. In third place, Aurora making the incredible comeback, going from pretty much steadily 6th all season to just eking out a third place finish at 4-3 and plus 8. Tied ostensibly with Firebolt of the Minnesota Magikarps, who almost fell from his ivory tower but just barely held on at a 4-3 plus 8, tying Aurora in terms of win-loss and differential, but losing the head-to-head and therefore advancing to playoffs in 4th.
Yep, and those who will not be making it to playoffs are Mass of the Minneapolis Magnezones at a 3-4 plus 3, followed by Doodled at a 3-4 plus 1, with Jake in 7th place at 2-5 at minus 16, and Woody at an 0-7, being the only player this season to not get a win at minus 36.
Yep. Pearl Division is a division of violence. Everyone in the middle was scrapping till the very end, and we did end up with 1 undefeated and 1 with 0 wins. So, very polarizing division.
Platinum was all looking Woody's wins like that.
Too, I know, it's crazy. Redistribution of wealth. You know what? You split the difference between Vincent and Woody, and suddenly you have someone who is as competitive as anyone from 2 to 6. You know?
Absolutely the case.
But genuinely so sad for Mass and Doodled. Really put up a hell of a fight, and it was going to suck no matter what 2 of those players didn't end up making it.
Yep.
So just a moment of silence for our friends in Pearl who made it so interesting and exciting and made it what it was all season. Even though you didn't pull it all the way to the end, I hope you feel proud of your performance because goddamn, sheesh.
Now that it's been a moment.
Sure. And now that moment of silence is over, let us perk up a little bit and talk about those of us who advanced into playoffs, and especially with an angle on those from the Pearl Division, because what do we have in front of us right now, Cabral?
We have the brackets of everything, and by the way, some spoilers before I put this video up. If you have not seen the other division videos and you want to know how those matches all went and who ended up where, go check them out. They're a lot of fun to watch. So, with that being said, we are looking at the brackets and the layouts on who's going to be fighting who here in playoffs for Double Dip Season 6. I almost said 7 because it was week 7.
Right.
And I have an idea. I'll announce the bottom and the top, and you announce the... Wait, no, hold on. I'll announce the top and the third, and then you announce the second and fourth.
The what?
Yeah. So, you do this top one. No, I do this top one, and I do this one. You do this one, and then
I can't even see your mouse right now, so we'll just,
All right, so you do the bottom one in the second set.
Okay, are we only doing round 1?
We were going to talk about all of it, but, we're going to talk about it real quick.
Let's just start at the top and alternate. Well, I don't know why we're overcomplicating this. Okay. Look, at the very top of the bracket...
Because I didn't want to talk about myself.
Oh, you didn't want... okay.
See, we're doing every other one, see?
Okay, all right. Yeah, that's fine. Then we'll do every other one. You start.
Yeah, so first off, we do have the third seed for Diamond Division fighting off the... Is it 4th seed? Or no, third seed for Pearl, right?
I'm going to go get the
where's that sheet at?
I have it to hand. I just need a second to scroll for it. Why don't you say who the teams are, and I will give you...
We do have our first, one of our first matches for the first round. We have Scoots of the Dumble Scoots Army versus Aurora of the Hoensbroek Hunters fighting each other in their first week, and that's an insane match. Moving up the bracket slightly, we do have Kenneth of the Narrable Ninja Kings getting his bye. That is that bracket right there, and that's going to lead into the quarterfinals or semifinals after that. Quarterfinals after this first week. Thank you.
All right, let's try that again. So basically, just to kind of explain it better, can you go back to the bracket so I could actually see it, my friend? Thank you. Aurora versus Scoots is interesting because Scoots is the 3rd seed of Diamond and Aurora is the... Ooh, okay.
Sorry, I meant to open it in my other monitor so I can preview it.
Look, Scoots advanced as the 3rd seed of Diamond. Aurora advanced as the 3rd seed of Pearl.
Yep.
Not where we expected either of these players to be. When we were seeding, Scoots was expected to advance at the top of Diamond, and Aurora was expected to advance at the top of Pearl. That did not end up happening. And so, unfortunately, as the chips fall where they may, Scoots and Aurora have to fight in the top 8 qualifier, and the winner goes on to fight, as you said, Kenneth of the Ne'er-do-Well Nido Kings, who advanced with the number 1 position bye from the Platinum Division, which got 2 byes.
Yep.
So that's absolutely bonkers. To think that going into semifinals, only one of Kenneth, Aurora, and Scoots will advance. That's wild.
Yeah, kind of crazy.
The next match underneath that is between the 3rd seed of Platinum and the 4th seed of Diamond, which ended up being Nihilus of the Dallas Ducklets and Cabral of the Hash-slinging Aegis Slashers.
That's me.
The winner of that fight will then go on to play Vincent for the semifinals of the Heerlen Hawluchas, who is, of course, the 1st seed of Pearl and the Pearl Division bye. That one is really crazy. Nihilus and Cabral, I feel like, would be a pretty close match.
I feel like that, too.
I bet you do. Do you have any thought?
It's gonna be a close match. I feel like. I don't think I can really get into it too much, but yeah.
Right. We don't want to get too into spilling the industry secrets, as far as like being the people playing in that, but it's a really exciting match to me. I think that Nihilus and Cabral, whoever wins that has proven a lot. And honestly, for both of you to get here again was so huge. You had to make such an incredible upset to make it where you did. And Nihilus has just been on an absolute fucking tear all season. So I'm excited to see who prevails.
Yeah, but what I'm more excited to see is our next batch of fights, or fight singular, I guess. Is you versus Nick of the Loafville Lanturns, and you, of course, are Spoot of the Southbound Sand Slashers.
That's right.
Great job getting the playoffs, by the way. Congratulations.
Thank you. It was touch and go there for a lot longer than I would have liked, but it ended up being fairly clean. I think I got in 2 wins ahead of everybody else.
Yeah.
So it worked out okay. It's kind of funny. I'm playing against Nick. This is a flashback. This is like some real old school type shit, but this was losers round 1 of the double elimination playoffs bracket from season 2, where I fought Nick and he beat me. So it's been a while since we've played. I don't know if we've played since then. But for him, he came out near the top of Pearl and I came out near the bottom of Platinum. And ostensibly whoever wins between us will then go on to play Bananas for semifinals. So that's an exciting part of bracket for me to be. I genuinely don't know where I go, where Nick goes, where Bananas goes. I feel like all 3 of these possible outcomes are so high variance that I couldn't tell you. All I know is I'm scared of both. I think Nick's had an incredibly strong season, and certainly Bananas has had an incredibly strong season as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll have to see how that goes. And I think that's going to be an interesting bracket to just watch in general. Not as interesting as, honestly, Scoots, Aurora, Kenneth. I think that's probably the most interesting of the brackets. But go ahead and tell us the last bracket real quick.
I'd be happy to. Let's not let her kind of get under our noses. So the final set of matches is the 2nd seed of Diamond versus the 4th seed of Pearl, which ended up being Claire of the Maryland Manectrics and Firebolt of the Minnesota Magikarps. Firebolt effectively swapping places with Nick. If he had kept his 2nd place finishing, then he would be fighting me and Nick would be fighting Claire. But instead, it is Firebolt versus Claire, which I think is super interesting. Again, Firebolt having a pretty strong season. Claire also having a very strong season. Claire being the only one to beat Bananas. Firebolt, being one of the only people that managed to beat Nick. And so they're both capable of pulling off some strong big wins. I think, Claire is probably slightly favored, not flavored, excuse me. Claire is slightly favored over Firebolt just based on historical placings. Flavored. But also consider that Firebolt has made the deep run as far as 4th. He's made it to top 4 before.
Yeah.
So that's going to be, I think, a surprising exciting one. Yes, and down here, yeah, the 2nd Platinum bye went to IDM, who managed to lose it right in the very last week, just barely to Kenneth. Yep. And so he now fights the winner of Claire versus Firebolt, which is actually, in a way, an easier bracket for IDM than he would have had up top, just based on kind of the goofiness of where Aurora and Scoots landed. In theory, it should have been easier to be on top, but fighting the winner of Claire and Firebolt, you still can't sleep on them, but, Aurora and Scoots just have such an insane pedigree that I think IDM was kind of, a little stoked when he saw the bracket and said, wait, I don't actually have to fight the winner of Scoots and Aurora. I get to fight the winner of Claire versus Firebolt. I'll take that,
Yeah. Yeah, but again, don't sleep on the Claire's had a really good season. this year.
Yeah, and Claire has beaten IDM more than once
Yep.
in the course of Double Dip, so that's going to be one to keep your eye on. And so really, it's hard to predict how this pans out in the end. I think if I had to wager a guess as to what the top 4 looked like, jeez, I honestly think it's Kenneth, Vincent. Oh, I genuinely don't know who gets it between me, Nick, and Bananas. Let's assume Bananas, because he's had the best season of 3 of us. I will just charitably say Bananas beats whoever advances.
Yeah.
I think top 4 looks like, all 4 buys. I think everybody else gets knocked out. And then from there, probably
I'm going to say Claire beats IDM this season.
You think so? You think she can do it again?
I think she could do it again.
She'd have to beat Firebolt to get a chance,
Yeah. I think Claire can do that. I can see that happening here.
I have faith in Firebolt. Again, he's made the deep runs.
Oh, he
has.
has.
He's got sets on IDM and Scoots before.
This isn't me going at Fireball saying he's awful or bad, because he's not a bad player.
No, of course not. Of course not.
I don't know. I feel like Claire has a decent opportunity here. By the way,
but Claire has also not had phenomenal playoffs luck before.
That's
she
fair.
has
Playoffs changes a lot of people
every time. She's gotten the playoffs every time, but she's, as far as I can remember, I don't think she's made it to top 4.
Yeah. Playoffs changes people. By the way, I've just kind of noticed this. Claire and Nick having opposite logo colors is really getting to me now that I kind of glance back and forth. You got the
the blue and yellow, yeah.
Yeah, the blue and yellow, but inverted with the red eye still.
Yeah,
one looking at
funny.
you, one looking ahead.
Oh, that's really funny.
Yeah, but it's
right.
gonna be crazy. So we talked about this a little bit in the Pearl recap. By the way, go watch that and watch the Diamond recap. I don't know who you're talking to over there, but it sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be probably Aurora, maybe someone else. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
But
I was just gonna say that. Crap. What was I gonna say?
You got it. I believe in you. I'll wait here in total silence until you say what you're doing.
But you can't do that. No, I was blank. Yeah, I absolutely did blank on what I wanted to talk about. It was brackets. Firebolt and I brought this up earlier when we were talking about the brackets and everything in Pearl Division's recap. And that is... Crap.
You brought up something. I know you did.
We did. I'm trying to think. Say words that I was saying up until that point.
Right. Well, you and Firebolt were getting really into it. You were getting comfortable. You were talking about the playoffs.
Yeah.
And it came up. You were talking maybe about Claire. I don't know.
No, not about Claire. We were talking about the brackets and whatever and stuff and things and the seeds.
Well, hey, if you forgot it, then it wasn't that important.
It is possible, by the way, for IDM and Kemet to fight again, and I think that's really funny.
That's true. If they meet again, they'd be meeting in grand finals.
Yeah.
I think it's so interesting. It's gonna be.
They can meet in bronze match. You never know.
Well, that's true. They also could meet in bronze.
Mm-hmm.
that's very, very true. Yeah, I think really, if I was gonna pick someone who I thought had the best overall shot of actually taking it all the way, I think this is Vincent's season.
Ooh, yeah. Honestly, he's undefeated, and he shows that he does not want to lose that. I remembered what it was. So, I don't know if you noticed this pattern. Cody, who's normally in these videos for the recaps?
Well, I mean, you and I.
Okay. Claire.
Oh shit! Yeah, I
Aurora.
see what you're saying.
Firebolt was in one as well. Yep. Nick's been in them before. Your brother's been in them. So we're at a point where we're running out of people to talk about it. So one of the things we're likely going to be doing is I'm probably going to tackle the bottom brackets with someone, and you're going to tackle the top brackets with someone. That way we don't talk about our own matches.
Right. We will be merging all of the recaps, since this is the final week of Pearl Division recap. I mean, this is it for Pearl. Yep. So everything from now on is going to be playoffs coverage. And in order to get that playoffs coverage, we're going to have to do a little bit of finagling to make sure that we give decent, unbiased, or unbiased to the best of our ability commentary. And part of that is obviously not commentating on your own match where you can help it. And unfortunately, as you were saying, all of our regular stable of commentators managed to make it into playoffs, which is great, until you have to make a commentary where you don't talk about your own game. So As you said, I think there's probably going to be, it's going to be one long video, and it's just going to be stitched together from two shorter videos of probably two different pairs of commentators breaking down the top and bottom half of the bracket, whichever one they didn't play in.
Yeah, and then we'll have to wait till
that's one video.
Yeah, and then after that one, we're likely going to be down to... We're going to have to see who sticks around for playoffs or not. As soon as we start losing one or two people in certain matches, we start to get people back to be able to help out. So we'll have to see how that goes.
Yeah, you'll have to stay tuned. So if you're not familiar, just the quick flash in the pan version is the next 2 weeks of matches are going to be played as though we were still in the regular season. They're due on Sunday. This round one, there's only the 4 matches. It's Scoots versus Aurora, Nihilus versus Cabral, White Loaf versus myself, and Claire versus Firebolt. That's going to be played like normal. Whoever loses this week is out. Whoever wins gets to go on to fight their respective bye, which in this case would be for match 1 would be Kenneth, match 2 would be Vincent, match 3 would be the Bananas, and match 4 would be IDM. And then from there, we would get, we would be whittling it down to 4 players. And at that point, we would then take basically another week's gap at least. I think we'd have it 2 weeks out roughly. And we would find a date that works for all 4 players that made it into the top 4. And then we would arrange to have all of the remaining matches played on a live stream. So we'd have semifinal A, semifinal B, bronze match, and then grand finals, all back to back to back to back to back on a live stream with the dippies and everything else coming in beforehand. So lots of stuff to look forward to, lots of cool content. If you are a fan of Double Dip, it's going to be a great couple of weeks for you. Once again, I'd love to give a huge shout out to just everybody who made this possible, all of the people who played that didn't make it to playoffs. You guys are every bit as important as the people we're going to go on to continue to cover. You are the lifeblood of Double Dip, and obviously we cannot do it without your ongoing support. I'd like to give you a very sincere thank you, Cabral, for all the work you've put in on making these videos and doing these commentaries with me. Genuinely greatly appreciated.
Yeah, and thank you for putting this whole thing together, actually. The whole Double Dip, for planning out the battles, the Pokemon, blah, 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 all that fun stuff.
I appreciate that. And we got to give credit where it's due to Aurora as well, who has also done... okay, yeah, never mind that. Never mind. Sorry, Aurora.
No, Aurora, I love you. Thank you for all the hard work you do.
No, we love Aurora. You did a great job. Thank you for all you do to help maintain this league. I think we've made something very special here. It's always so bittersweet to me, man. When we turn off this video recording, Pearl Division is gone. Yeah.
That's it. Well, might as well turn off this video then and say goodbye to Pearl Division.
Goodbye, Pearl Division.
Goodbye, Pearl.
Remember you.
Go check out the last Diamond and the last Platinum recaps when you get a chance. And we will remember you as you remembered us. Take care. Enjoy playoffs. I'm sure you'll see us fight it out in there, but I'm certain you'll hear us talk about it because we're kind of the only 2 main commentators around here.
Yeah, one of us will be back at least, unless we meet each other in grand finals.
That'd be insane.
That'd be crazy. Who's going to commentate that one?
Not us.
Not us.
With that, bye everyone.
Goodbye. Rest in peace, Pearl Division. I love you.